little bit about myself. I'm originally from India. I went to Russia for 2 years. Not sure what I did over there. What kind of woman probably is kind of the answer. I was 19, so what else do you do? Then I landed up in Provo, Utah, which is kind of the opposite of what kind of woman. If you guys know what Provo, Utah is, it's a Mormon town, and it's not the. It's probably was really good for my health, for my career, and everything else in between. I landed up in Seattle after that. That's my garage where I started QuestionPro. Literally, I started the company back in 2005. Ran for about 5 years. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But let me see. Yeah. So today we are in about pretty much every part of the planet, I think. We are in South Africa, obviously, and we are in Australia, Japan, every market that we want to get into. Just to give you kind of metrics by numbers, as you can see, 5.5 million people have created surveys on our platform over the last 20 years. A lot of surveys completed, as well as a lot of questions answered. So I'll give you some perspective on how we kind of came about being a survey platform and who we are today from a tooling and platform perspective. So we started off as a survey platform, and then we kind of got into market research as our core construct. So within market research, Qual and Quant being the key elements of what we do. Quant being obviously using surveys, and we also bought a company called DigSite, which does qualitative research. So that rounds out our offering with respect to qualitative and quantitative research. Along with it, we also have a communities platform, very similar to Alida, Vision Critical. We believe in kind of having a community-based solution for market research as part of our offering to make it, to round out the offering. And then finally, we have a sampling and audience management services along with it. For the CX side, so we divide our business into market research, CX, and EX. For the CX side, primarily is the voice of the customer platform that we sell, along with a digital CX product called Intercept. That is for, we talked a little bit about, digital journeys earlier on, and measuring digital journeys are a key component of what we do. And along with that, we also bought in a journey management. So not just voice of the customer, but managing journeys and defining journeys. We bought a company called Suite CX, and that was part of the offering there. And then finally, on the employee experience side, we have a couple of different tools. The primary one being our survey platform for collecting data from employees, but also 360 leadership assessments. A lot of companies, apart from employee climate assessments, also like to do leadership assessments using the 360 platform. So that's kind of like pretty much what we do from a tooling and tooling perspective. And then this whole thing is, I would say, is kind of like underpinned with a data analytics and AI layer. So if you can think of it, the way we thought about kind of our business was that we want to help companies understand their customers, understand their employees, and understand the market. So the three constituent groups any business has, external markets that are not your customers, obviously understanding your customers and understanding your employees. So that's the core thesis about what we want to do. When I started QuestionPro, we started off as a survey tool. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We wanted to build a SaaS platform for surveys. But as we evolved, we realized what surveys really do is to get people to elicit what they're thinking, what they are behaving, and there's a lot of behavioral tools available, but the why. What we really wanted to get to is why. Why do people do something? And the best way to do that, at least one of the easiest and the simplest way to understand why people do something, is just to ask them. And that's kind of the core thesis behind what we are doing. And our mission statement is to really get into deep understanding of why people do certain things, realistically. But the journey doesn't stop there, right? So we built these tools. We've been in business for almost 20 plus years. We've grown to over 400 employees globally. We still, a lot of our tools are point and click. We want to make everything easy for our customers to just build and use. So a lot of our tools are point and click. Sometimes we get into talks with customers. We cannot deliver just using a point-and-click interface. We have to do some custom delivery for them. And then finally, another 5% of our kind of operations is trying to kind of come up with new ideas. What do we want to do next? Not just kind of sit on what we have today, but come up with new things that we can do. And I'll walk you guys through a few new ideas that we have that we want to implement over the next couple of months, couple of years, and we'll just keep doing this till we get it right. Obviously, everybody's talked about AI, and we talked about a lot about plagiarism. It reminds me of a story. My wife was kind of telling me, like, she was like, we have two kids. We have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, two teenagers. And she was like, when this whole ChatGPT came out, she was like, these kids have it fucking too easy. Right? They can just steal the shit, and we had to go through all kinds of shit to just steal and cheat and everything else. They just have it too easy. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's true. They just have it easy. But again, with AI, what are we really getting, really, right? So we talked a little bit about productivity. The way I think about AI is largely about productivity, right? So whether it's in the context of trying to figure out doing recommendations, analyzing open-ended text, any number of different things can be used. But it's really fundamentally kind of boils down to productivity. Now, whether it's 10x, 100x, 2x productivity increase, we can debate that all day long. And I think pretty much everybody has come to that same conclusion in some way, shape, or form. And the key things on AI is like, how do we get that productivity increase down to folks who are using tools? So that's kind of good. What I call the last mile delivery of AI is actually pretty important, right? So if you're trying to figure out, hey, if you're doing pricing analytics, are there AI tools to figure out how your competitors are pricing things dynamically in real time? So that helps you, which something took a day or two to figure out, now can be done in 20 minutes. So it's really a productivity kind of, the way I look at AI tools, it's really a productivity enhancing device, if you will. And AI can also get kind of like probably process large amount of text. And I think, in quantitative research, I think there are some applications, but in qual research, there are a lot more applications for AI to kind of like plug itself into. Including things like automated journey mapping and automated kind of looking at open-ended comments and coming up with kind of reasonably interesting kind of output, not just from 100 or 200 open-ended comments, but 1,000 or 2,000 open-ended comments can now be reasonably well analyzed, which was physically impossible to do using human power. Maybe physically possible, but economically not viable to do that. So those are the kind of use cases that are getting a lot of traction with respect to AI. And I want to showcase one thing. One of the tools that we have is called Insights Hub. It's kind of think of it as a research repository for all the research data and all the insights that you've collected over the last N number of years. These includes PowerPoint decks, secondary research, PDF files, and now you can put all of that in one location and simply ask questions to the subsystem to say like, hey, here's all the data that we've collected, here's all the research we've done, and you can use a Q&A interface. And that's another big change from a human psychology perspective. If you think about it, all of us have grown along with Google as our discovery engine, right? So like, okay, when we want to learn something new, we search for it. That's kind of what we've grown along. And like I said, my daughters, they actually use ChatGPT as their discovery engine. They don't use Google as their discovery engine, right? So first thing, like, I want to go to South Africa, Dad, you should go da-da-da-da, and they just, it asks, obviously the kid asked ChatGPT, what should my dad do when he's in Johannesburg, right? And came up with a set of things to do. So that's a psychological behavior that we have to kind of really understand, that people are now using chat as a discovery model as opposed to search. Which was search was the primary discovery model for the last, 10, 15 years, ever since Google was around. But now Q&A is the discovery model. So people are expecting, and even within the enterprise. So that's where this thing gets a lot of interesting is, marketing managers, for example, Energizer uses Insights Hub. The research managers put all the data onto Insights Hub, and then all the marketing managers throughout the planet can come and ask simple questions against the data set. Not like, hey, look, I have to look at PowerPoint deck number 3. Hey, what do we know about Gen Z and and Everready? So that's kind of like, and if they have done some research about Gen Z and Everready, then they get a synopsis answer. And this works really well, partly because the consumers of this are not researchers, but actually marketing managers. So a regular marketing manager wants to have some data, so they can get that from Insights Hub. The second part that I want to talk about a little bit today is, and I think somebody else kind of mentioned it, data in general, we're in the business of collecting data. Data in general is generally useless because if you cannot tell stories with the data, you're not going to get any change. So we talked a little bit about, we want, ultimately, this is about making some change within an organization, within a subsystem, somewhere else. But we also believe that storytelling is what creates change as part of this. And so storytelling is equally important, and we already have data overload, so we don't want to say like, oh, we have tons of data, but very little stories. And the stories are what sticks. We all know that. Stories, more importantly, what drive change at the end of the day, right? And ultimately, I believe we are all in the business of driving change, driving progress, driving change, one way or the other, really. So I think coming up with a storytelling mechanism is actually going forward equally important. Generative AI helps you do that, tells the story. Generative helps you do that, but obviously you can take that as your starting point and do a lot of things. One of the things that I want to highlight over here is our kind of revamped business intelligence tool. As you can see, we have data coming in from employees, from customers, and markets. And in order to kind of synthesize this data, we've created a common BI layer. So if you're using QuestionPro for, we talked a little bit about frontline surveys or agentic surveys where we are saying, hey, we want our employees know a lot more about how the CX, how the customer experience is doing. So you are running a bunch of HR-based surveys, and then you're also running a bunch of employee-based surveys. You can mesh the data together and have a single BI dashboard to say how the sentiment with employees change, and how does that actually affect, or at least correlate that to customer experience. So for that, we need a common data layer at least, so that we can bring all the data in a common location. So BI is one of those tools that we've introduced in the last 6 months, I think, to kind of seamlessly get data across all these areas and having a single location for that. And it's important to have that single location because it's easy to do all the stat testing and everything else. The next thing I want to talk about is really like in the research world, we are seeing a massive convergence of qualitative research and quantitative research. So earlier on, the whole game was, hey, you do qual, I do quant, or I do quant and you do qual. But research as a whole has converged, partly because of the tooling that's available, and partly people have realized qualitative and quantitative research can actually complement each other. The way I look at qualitative data, it's depth. Right? So when you do a qualitative interview, you go deep with somebody, sit down with somebody, and go down with depth. And quant gives you breadth, right? Like what are a lot of people thinking, what are a lot of folks thinking. So when you merge quant and qual, then you can get a pretty good understanding of what's going on. And so that's kind of where I see a lot of kind of our efforts going, is merging quant and qual together into a single unified interface. So that gives us both the breadth and depth. A good example of that is this tool called Livecast that we launched, where within a survey people can provide video feedback, and everybody's used to Instagram and TikTok, taking videos of themselves, and even within a survey, within any feedback process, you can embed a video capture capabilities. So that's a qualitative. Typically, you would argue that that's a qualitative exercise, that is embedded in a quantitative model effectively. So that helps kind of bridge kind of like the gap between qual and quant, if you will. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about that we are focusing on is data quality. So today, if you look at market research, I know in South Africa, a lot of research is done, field research, but if you look at other markets, there are a lot of research is done digitally in terms of the quality of the data that you're collecting directly impacts, obviously, your assessment of, of the outcomes. So within, at least on the online world, we've introduced a whole bunch of tools to make sure that the data quality is high. Because if the data quality goes down, if you have imposters, if you have data that is, a robot is filling the survey out, robot is collecting, giving information, standardized information. So all that would, clearly degrade the quality of the data that you have, and then effectively make your research, frankly, useless at some point. So we are pretty focused on data quality right now, and because we believe that's, frankly, in my mind, it's an existential issue if the data quality issue is not fully solved. And one of the interesting things that we are doing in the data quality side is using LLMs, as you all know, we have enough LLMs out there to create synthetic data. That is effectively, what is synthetic data? Another way to look at synthetic data is look at everything that we've collected about a particular person, and then try to use that data to predict what they will do in the future. And so that's that is the core kind of analysis of how to use synthetic data. So that's something that is a brand new, I would argue it's, even we don't know whether that's probably the right answer or the wrong answer, but we are definitely experimenting with synthetic data right now with our own panels. So we have a large panel, and we use that panel to say, hey, if you did not, without asking questions, can we interpolate and get some answers out of it? So, obviously we're doing a whole bunch of things, and we want to know what's next, right? Innovation is obviously, we've been doing this for a long period of time, almost for 20 years. We've come up with all kinds of tools. We've written over millions of lines of code and software. We have, thousands of customers, but why do we do this? Why are we here? To sell software? Yeah, maybe not. I'll tell you why I'm here, all right? So back in 2005, when we started off, this is what we knew about everybody else. This is what I knew about my customers. Today, we have a better understanding of who we are talking to, right? And these better understandings come up with better experiences. We can come up with better experiences on behalf of our customers if we understand our customers really well. So that's my why. I want to make sure that we have real connections with our customers and our partners. That's my why. And so with that, I want to thank you all for being here as part of our thing. Thank you again.